This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag. Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag is Baton Rouge's longest running and best television show. Who would have believed that?
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. Remember, it all starts at Breck. Now, your host, Lee Feinswag.
6-2-17. It's Sports 225, and if you were paying attention as the camera panned into us, you'll see that my guest is Matt Moscona. He of radio fame. He does a daily show from 3 to 6 on 104.5 ESPN here in Baton Rouge. And for those of you watching in New Orleans, 100.3. And then for those of you watching from around the world, which of course you can on Sports 225 TV on YouTube, there's an app and stuff. How are you?
Things. I'm good.
You're
Stuff
good.
and things.
You're good.
This has been a wild 4 weeks.
Since I last saw you here on the show. Yes.
Les Miles got fired.
Yep.
They canceled a football game and
Yep.
then rescheduled it.
Yep.
Ed Ogeron might be the coach.
Yep.
Alabama still dump trucks everybody.
Yep.
This is weird.
Were you here, was it like 4 or 5 weeks ago, the last time you were here?
Yeah, it was right
Yeah.
at the start of the season.
Yeah. You know, the one thing about sports, the two things that are the most important for me in sports are the places you go and the people you meet. And then for many of you, it's about your team winning. It's never been that for me since I've been an adult. Like, that was just something I just got away from, I guess, when I got into the business. It was just sort of watching it. But it's always, in most cases, something interesting will happen if you just pay attention and let it be. You know, this phrase I always use with you when we talk about football. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Every season, if you just wait, something will happen and it'll take its course. And it's so strange. And
But football really is kind of a sprint, though. It's 12 games. You can ill afford to lose any of them.
Right.
It's more of a sprint than any other sport.
Well, let me give you a good example.
Okay.
Okay. And you and I have debated this a little bit in person and over the phone, but not on television, because Les Miles was the coach the last time you were on television here with us. So I'm on record as saying I don't think a coach should be fired during a season. You should wait till the end of the season unless he's guilty of something terribly immoral, illegal, or has a bunch of little criminals running around, and you know, it's an embarrassment to the program. All that being said, I recognize that a change had to be made and all that. But you go back, like when you go back to the first game of the season when LSU played Wisconsin, it seemed like the end of the world the way LSU played that day and the way Wisconsin won. But now that you look at it 5 weeks later, Wisconsin's pretty good. We didn't think Wisconsin was that good. Wisconsin's pretty good. It's a good team.
They're okay.
Yeah. LSU goes to Auburn, loses in a most bizarre set of circumstances. You know, the play at the end and all the things that happened. As it turns out, Auburn's not bad. You know? And so,
yeah.
And again, I'm not going back to saying, you know, they would have won it under a different coach or shouldn't have had that. You know, I'm not going there. I'm just saying that as you look back at the body of work, and LSU now is 4-2.
4-2.
Yeah, and it could have maybe been 4-3 or 5-2. We don't know, but you know, as we go. But if Les Miles had been the coach the whole time, granted the results and the way they got there, the process would have been different. But LSU probably would have still been 4-2.
If Ed Ogeron was the coach at the onset of the season with this offense,
correct,
perhaps they're 6-0 right
correct,
now.
Absolutely.
And I might actually argue that they would be at this point.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think what we see, though, to your point, is that there are these preconceived notions we have in college football based on preseason rankings and talking heads in the box like you're looking at right now.
Well, yeah, and you start not only as a year-round, but especially like with SEC football media days for this area. You know, you start in mid-July, and then it just ramps up, and you take it to a certain, you know, level there, and again, like for rankings and pecking order and what you think about teams and preconceived notions, and they just move forward.
Yeah. Well, I had a guy call my show this week and say something similar about, you know, if LSU maybe is as good as we thought, you know, preseason. And my point was, Notre Dame was a preseason top 10 team.
Yeah.
They stink. Stanford was a preseason top 10 team. They stink. Oregon has lost 4 in a row. They were ranked. They stink. I mean, it's like, I wish we could do away with preseason rankings because it sets an unfair expectation. It's not about what's fair, unfair, but it's like people just gravitate toward that and assume that that's the expectation for those teams and those programs because of where they're ranked in the preseason when we know nothing about these teams, very little about them anyway.
Well, you got two things at play there. One is the residual effect of so many young players leaving after their third year when they're eligible, and eventually that has to take its toll unless it's Alabama. And then I'm really glad that the college football playoff, I almost was going to say the BCS, but doesn't come out with its so-called rankings until later on. So at least there's some, patience involved there, and they don't jump the gun from day one.
But it's not going to change. Like the coaches poll is sponsored.
Right.
They make money. It's the Amway coaches poll. They make money off of that poll.
Of course.
Which is coaches or SIDs just filling out their top 25. Like it's not going anywhere because it's all a scheme to make money, and it creates discourse and conversation, but it also creates expectations that a lot of times are out of whack. And I think that's very clearly what happened at Notre Dame this year, at Stanford, at USC. Remember, that was a preseason top 10 matchup with Alabama and USC.
Yeah.
And Bama scored 50 on USC. I mean,
and that was one of the things that really got in the craw of LSU, which was that Bama did it later that night after LSU lost to Wisconsin with a freshman quarterback.
He's really good, too.
Yeah, I know.
Jalen Hurts he gives Alabama something that they have not had under Nick Saban. They've had quarterbacks that can man. I don't typically like the game manager term or phrase because we know what that means. Like a guy like Jake Coker had a big arm, but he wasn't going to make dynamic plays with his feet. Jalen Hurts can beat you running the ball, or he can beat you throwing the ball if you respect his ability to run too much. Alabama's never had that. Not even with Blake Sims, who was, you look at him and Blake Sims is a black quarterback and you think, oh, he's a dual threat guy. Blake Sims came to Alabama as a running back, but he left Alabama as the single season passing yardage leader. I mean, he became a really dynamic passer throwing the ball to Amari Cooper. This though with Jalen Hurts is just something completely different from Alabama, which should be terrifying for the rest of college football because nobody's beating them.
That was a very good answer that took us well past the time of the break, so hold that thought.
Your fault.
He's Matt Moscona. No, I wouldn't interrupt a fine
You should just stop.
orator like yourself.
You should stop.
I will in the last segment.
Stop.
He's Matt Moscona. I'm Lee Feinsbach. It's Sports 225. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College, and I really encourage you to come out to our 12-acre campus here on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge.
Contact ITI to enroll in our Construction Management Associate and Occupational Studies degree program. Learn to plan, coordinate, budget, and supervise construction projects and collaborate with engineers and architects in the residential, commercial, industrial, and heavy civil construction industry sectors. Call now about this new, exciting career degree. ITI Technical College. Begin your journey to a better life.
All right, back on Sports 225, talking football. What else with Matt Moscona? He is a prolific talker, writer now at gridironnow.com and other stuff.
Can I tell you a funny story?
I love funny stories.
This is really quick.
Okay, good.
My degree is in print journalism because I didn't want to edit video at LSU. Avid was a miserable system to edit video. Renting cameras was a pain. So I said, you know what? Not doing this. I'll just get my degree in print.
You know what's really great, and as a total aside, if you asked me what we're going to talk about, it's not that, but I'm coming back to that in a second. You know, I have our website, volleyballmag.com, which is we're international about volleyball and cover on all fronts. The most amazing thing to me in this world is not the quick little stories, not good video interviews, but really well done, long written pieces are what get the most hits and the longest time spent. Because you can analyze all this now, all the data is there for you. You can see real time who's doing what, and they're spending 4, 5, 6 minutes on real stories. And so I'm so glad that that's not a dead thing. So what were you going to ask me about? What was I going to ask you about? I'm going to ask you about Purdue because it's funny.
Thanks for dressing up, by the way.
Well,
I'm proud of you. You look good today. By your standards, you look dynamite.
It's because he doesn't like any of my cool shirts, but this is one of my.
You wear
this
these
is the time
hideous beach shirts and shorts. I mean, you're not wearing socks today, but I don't fault you for that.
Well,
Show
whatever.
people that you're not wearing socks.
I don't know if you can't see there. You
Yeah,
go.
they can
So,
but I like that look.
this is the time of year when everybody's doing breast cancer awareness ball games, and there's a lot of pink outs and pink stuff. So this is one of my cool pink shirts.
I love
and
it.
So,
My mom
so I'm
and
wearing-
aunt are both breast cancer survivors, so I love the Go Pink movement.
Good, good. And I'm good that they're survivors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, exactly. And, anyhow, so Purdue. So my friend Dave Jones up in Harrisburg wrote an interesting column the other day in Penn Live about how the worst thing that Purdue could do would be to hire 63 or 64-year-old Les Miles to take over that program. Purdue, always a place that's not fond in my heart because I've never been arrested in my life, but almost got arrested covering an LSU women's basketball game at Purdue in Mackey Arena. Another story for another day. But
you can't not tell that story now.
No,
Yes, I was a double negative, but I don't care.
Well,
give me the Cliffs Notes real quick.
So it's around 1996 or 7, and LSU lost to Old Dominion, and Florida was playing Louisiana Tech in the second game. And I went back out to watch the Florida-Louisiana Tech game in the second half, and a woman told me I couldn't go where I was going, where I'd been going for 3 days for this tournament, wearing my press pass. And so I just went at a timeout, and a cop grabbed me, and hard. And he looked at me and said, "She said you can't go there." And I said, "Well, I'm wearing my pass." And he still had my arm. And I saw that he was wearing a gun. And so he was a Purdue University policeman. So I decided right then I had to do one of two things, either create an international incident and get arrested or just go back. So I decided, because he had the gun, and I hadn't finished my story yet, to go back, and at which point I became a very prolific letter writer. And I have unbelievable responses in the files from the NCAA, Purdue University president, the Purdue University athletic director, on and on and on, all apologizing profusely.
These should all be filed now at sports225.com.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome for the idea.
Anyway, what do you think the future does hold for Les Miles? Purdue, personally, I think the Purdue job's maybe not a bad job if he brings in the right assistant coaches with him.
I also agree with you on Purdue for this reason as well.
You almost got arrested there too?
No. Well, I don't like the state of Indiana. I lived there for a year and it was miserable. But I mean on Les Miles and Purdue, I should clarify. Because Purdue has gone bargain basement coaches. Daryl Hazel they took from Kent State. And by the way, we can come back to this because I think this is relevant to the LSU coaching search too. But typically, if what you did previously didn't work, you go the opposite. If you hire the soft-spoken players coach, offensive guy, you hire the hard-nosed defensive coach, right?
Yeah.
Next. So you went with Daryl Hazel, who was the mid-major guy, the bargain basement. The contrary to that would be Les Miles, a guy who's won at an elite level. I think the question is, would he want the Purdue job, though? I mean, he's a Midwestern guy. You know he can still recruit. He says he wants to coach. Is Purdue his landing stop? I mean, his style may actually work in the Big Ten and make Purdue relevant.
Well, when you say he's a Midwestern guy, he's been 12 years here, so 20% of his life or whatever, spent almost in Baton Rouge. The Big 12 this week announced it is not going to expand, and I think all of us thought Houston was going to go to the Big 12. I was personally rooting for Houston and Colorado State. Thought it would have just made a really cool mix. Conference realignment expansion is not over yet. But the Houston coach on so many people's minds is, the next big hire. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, by not going to the Big 12, they're not going to be able to elevate his salary, so they won't be able to keep him. If people come knocking.
They could elevate his salary. So understand that one of the Fertitta brothers is the guy who owns Landry's, all the restaurant chains, is the big Houston booster. And he said that he'll pony up money to keep Tom Herman there. And I believe him. But ultimately, Lee, the point is, Houston is not a destination job for anybody. No coach has ever said.
Not unless they got into the Big 12.
Even still, it's not. Even still, they are not Texas, Oklahoma,
right.
Even Oklahoma State with Boone Pickens money or the resources Baylor's thrown into their program or TCU. They're still not a destination job, even in the Big 12. So if no coach has ever said, "I'm at Houston, I made it. I get to play in front of 40,000 people."
But guests have said, "I'm on Sports 225 and I've made it."
Yes, all the time that happens.
And so I'm stopping you this time. He's Matt Moscona.
I don't get to finish my thought?
Oh,
after the break?
All right, hold it after the break. That's a big tease. We'll keep people there. I thought you were finished. I'm interrupting him because it's time to go to break, and I thought he was finished with his thought. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225. Oh, hi. I was checking out Yelphi. I do it all the time, all day, because it brings me all the news I need to know in sports. I mean, I've got a customized news feed real-time scores. It's integrated with Facebook and Twitter. You download it on iTunes, Yellfy, Y-E-L-L-F-Y. It's a great app and a fantastic Twitter feed. Stop and looked it up. I like the part back there where it has my name and the big Sports 225 thing, you know. Matt Moscona is here at Sports 225. You're having some thought and rambling on about something.
So real quick, so no coach will ever stay at Houston. So right. Tom Herman will leave, and this is probably the time where his stock will be the highest, so he'll go. What I'm curious, because LSU fans that want Tom Herman, there's a lot of LSU fans that want P.J. Fleck from Western Michigan. He's a hot young name. Darrell Hazel, I think, is a very good case study and a very good cautionary tale. This was a guy who went to Kent State, had won 11 games there, was on staff under Jim Tressel at Ohio State. So you think he's been at the major program under a championship-winning coach. He got his head coaching job at a mid-major, won really big. He's ready. He gets the Purdue job, and he bottoms out. He's won 3 Big Ten games in his 3+ seasons at Purdue. There's a big difference between getting that lower Power 5 job and a top 10 job in the country. There are different expectations. There are different ways that you're pulled. And I would say it to you this way. Maybe the best case study is Urban Meyer. Had an undefeated season at Bowling Green. He did not go from Bowling Green to Florida. He went from Bowling Green to Utah. Had an undefeated season at Utah, then he got the Florida job. I'm curious to see if Tom Herman goes from Houston to maybe a lower Power 5, which I don't think so. I think someone's going to spend a lot of money on him. But I think there's a lot of risk in hiring a guy like Tom Herman that doesn't exist if you say went and hired Jimbo Fisher.
You've heard me say this a million times, but the list is very small of coaches who can build and sustain or inherit and sustain a program. Les Miles did it for 12 years at LSU. He inherited a great situation, but he kept it going for a really long time. You mentioned Utah. Kyle Whittingham at Utah is one of my favorite coaches who replaced Urban Meyer and has just been there the whole time. They've been good and they've been relevant. I don't know why he doesn't get gobbled up. But the list of coaches who can build and sustain or inherit and sustain is very, very small. Mark Richt at Georgia was one of those guys. Yeah. It's not a surprise that he's doing well at Miami, and things will happen there. So.
And the guys to the contrary are guys like Mark Helfrich, immediate success, and he's fallen back at Oregon. Larry Coker at Miami inherited a national championship team, and every year regressed.
And I call it the flavor of the month, and it's more apparent even in basketball. The young coaches who do well for 1 or 2 years are rewarded with these big jobs. And a lot of times it's because they're black guys, and schools really want to hire them, and they do them an injustice. And you've got to take the money. You go 2 years at like mini state U and have a great run. You get to the NCAA tournament. Shaka Smart, so smart, no pun intended, staying at VCU as long as he did, building his resume, building his coaching experience, having the success he had, then going to Texas when the time was right. Yeah. So many guys don't do that. I don't begrudge anybody. You're making, $150,000, and all of a sudden somebody's knocking on the door offering 1.2, 1.5 as a basketball coach. I almost came up with a word I couldn't say for what kind of money that is for football. But what
was the word?
Well, one of them started with B, and there are other words, whatever. Yeah. I just couldn't say,
For football? Because it'd be low money.
Well, 1.2. Who's going anywhere for 1.2 unless they're in the Southland or something?
Tom Herman's making 3 at Houston.
Is he really? That's incredible.
They have boosters that will pay.
Let me finish with this segment out with one thing. You talked about how many LSU fans, covet the guy from Western Michigan, covet the guy from Houston. I think most LSU fans hope that Ed Orgeron succeeds and keeps the job. Do you agree? And
he's winning fan support.
Your finger is on the pulse, I think, of the people more than anybody, because you are of the people, by the people, for the people every day, and you interact with people and the masses more than anybody probably in the whole state.
Fans are hoping Ed Orgeron sticks, but he's got to win, Lee. If Ed Orgeron wins out, he's got the job.
Oh, of course.
Others need not apply. If he wins out, he's going to Atlanta, the SEC championship game. He'll probably beat Tennessee, and others need not apply. What's going to be interesting is if he wins just enough to make it uncomfortable for Joe Oliva, because that will make it very polarizing for the fan base, because there will be fans that want him to get the job. Let's say if maybe over this stretch of 5 games he goes 3-2. There's going to be fans that want him to get the job. And there's going to be others that don't.
Assuming one of the losses is to Alabama, which everybody gets a flyer on these days, don't they?
It's going to be an interesting game. Alabama is going to play their worst game of the season at some point. And everybody, look, Ohio State this past weekend got a scare from Wisconsin.
Already did. Wasn't Alabama down by a couple of touchdowns early to
Ole Miss? But then they dump trucked Ole Miss. So Ole Miss started fast, but that wasn't Alabama's worst game. That is still coming.
Now I'm calling time on you because this will get us our last break and get us back on track, sort of. You spend too much time in front of Facebook Live now on your radio show. That's all I can tell you.
What do you mean?
Because TV doesn't, you got this thing. He's Matt Moscona. You can listen to him from 3 to 6 every day on 104.5 ESPN. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
It was nearly a decade ago that Brett teamed up to Imagine Your Parks, and you imagined big. 12 beautiful community parks from one end of the parish to the other, one family-sized water park, and 5 other parks just for your dogs. You have places to splash and places to explore. You have games to play and camps galore. No matter what you like to do or see, visit Breck.org and see how together we have made Breck better than imagined.
Oh, another Sports 225 heads into its final segment. Big thanks to Nils Breckoff. He is the man at Cox 4 and directed the show today. We air on Cox 4. We air on CST. You can watch us on Sports 225 TV, the YouTube channel, accessible through sports225.com, where all the show listings are. And you can also listen to me on now Tuesdays at 4:15 p.m. with Matt Moscona on his radio show, and he is here rocking out because I think you hear radio waves in your head. Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't listening to anything you said.
That's okay. I wouldn't either. Whatever. You didn't have to. You knew eventually it would just. I'm like to most people, I think I'm like the teacher in Peanuts.
I used that reference earlier today.
Did you? So what do you think happens the rest of the LSU football season?
I think they split the Alabama-Ole Miss games, split the Arkansas-Texas A&M games, and beat Florida. So I think they'll go 3-2.
Creating that 3-2.
I think they will go 3-2. So I think Ogeron will end up going 5-2 as the interim head coach. Would
have been 6-2 because you have to assume
South Alabama, sure,
that he would have beaten South Alabama.
So I think they'll go 5-2 under Ogeron, and I think it's going to be very uncomfortable for Joe Oliva because there will be a lot of, and Ogeron's done everything right. He has won the media, he has won the fans, one team, one heartbeat. He's welcomed back former players. He has opened up the offense. He's delegated to his coaches. I think he's done everything right. But if you're LSU and you don't at least go say, "Hey Jimbo, do you want it?" You're doing your program a disservice. And now, if Jimbo says yes, you hire him. If he says no, it's probably Ogeron.
Other people may have already been contacted. Well, of course they have been because they use their agents and their seconds, and my people call your people. That's how it all works, right? I'm
curious to see how it goes. Very curious. Now, this all could be moot, Lee, because if Ogeron goes 1-4 over the next 5, ain't no way he's getting the job.
Of course. And who do you personally want to see be the coach?
Jimbo Fisher.
Okay.
And that pains me because I think Coach O's done awesome.
Well, I have a lot of reasons why I hope he doesn't get the job, but that's...
Who, Jimbo or Coach O?
Jimbo. I'm rooting for Coach O. And I'm rooting for you to go back to work this afternoon and catch up. All right, he's Matt Moscona, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday on 104.5 ESPN, and Tuesdays 4:15 with me. And thanks all. Good night. Now, wave off. There you go. Wave off. Oh, we're right on time. Perfect. Thank you.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die. Poetry was everywhere, sweet music filled the air.